Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/spookshow. Then go over to morbidlybeautiful.com as we are now part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcasting Network.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Roll two! Roll two! Yo-ho two!
Everybody here dies by dawn. Dead by dawn!
Welcome to the Spook Show. Hello, welcome to the latest edition of the All-American Spook Show podcast, and you just heard the music, so that means it's also the latest edition of Cannon Fodder. That's right, this is the series where we talk about good and middle and horrible and everything in between, the wonderful, wacky, horrible world of Cannon films. And the way we go about this is we have like how many ever Cannon films. Now we're very specific as far as like it had to have some Golden Globus production level to it, right? Like they had to be involved in some way, whether they distributed it or something during that time period. So we're basically focused on that time period where they took over Cannon, I think 1979 or so, all the way up until they Golden Globus split. So sometime early to mid 90s, I think, when they were officially done with each other. So that's kind of the time period we focus on, and we put them all on a wheel and we spin it, and whatever it lands on, that's what we decide. So unfortunately, there were no Christmas Cannon films. Like they didn't really directly produce a Christmas movie. So I know it's that time of year, but we didn't really have anything, but we still needed to do something. So we spun the wheel, and it actually landed on something that's kind of appropriate. It's not a Christmas movie, but it's kind of appropriate for the season because it's a family movie. But unfortunately, it's another Cannon Movie Tales movie, right? We're going to be talking about The Emperor's New Clothes. Now, if you've been listening over the last, year and a half or so, I think it was about this time last year, maybe a little further back, we did The Frog Prince. And that was also part of the Cannon Movie Tales. Now, the whole gimmick here was this was Cannon Films' attempt to kind of compete with Disney in some way. They made these kind of cheap fairy tale adaptations, like musicals and stuff. So they had a number of them, and we'll go through that here in just a minute. So this is another one of those. So, oh boy, get ready. We have made it perfectly known to the world, to the fates, that we don't really like musicals. So why does it feel like we're getting saddled with more musicals here lately in one form or another? What the hell have we done? Last week, we did Gremlins, but we also had the bonus episode where we just talked about Christmas cruelty. So here on the feed, you can go check that out. So if nothing else, right, this is a nice little palate cleanser to get that off of our brains for a minute and get more in the Christmas mood. So at least there's that. Before we dive into it, though, we want to remind everybody to go check out aaspookshow.com. We call that the center of the Spook Show universe. From there, you can check out all of our past podcast archives. You can also go to our YouTube channel from there, where every month we have series such as Video Vortex, Grindhouse Gutter, and Hammer Horror in Order. We also encourage you to go over to patreon.com/aaspookshow, which you can also access from the website, and become a patron of the Spook Show. I'm sure we're going to have a bunch of new stuff as we enter the new year, and we've got our big winter monster event coming up next month, and we'll be talking just a little bit more about that here pretty soon. We'll actually be able to lay down some titles and kind of the order of things here pretty soon. But we are going to be doing our 2024 year in review here at the first of the year as well. So lots of cool stuff to look forward to going forward, but we're not quite through with the Christmas season yet. And we'll tell you what we're going to be watching next week at the end of the show, so you want to stick around for that. We also want to encourage you to go over and buy some merch from our TeePublic page over on aaspookshow.com. You can access it there. So lots of stuff going on. Become a patron. Go check out the merch. All the past podcast archives. We've got like 200 and something episodes now. So the Spook Show always rolls on. We're always busy. So without any further build-up, we'll go and toss to the trailer for The Emperor's New Clothes.
Once upon a time, in a faraway land,
All hail His Royal Highness!
there lived a beloved emperor
Are the people ready for me? Which is my waving hand? The thick one. Oh, that's right, yes, the thick one.
who was bored of his clothing.
Ask any king from Sweden to Japan. Those make the man.
But across the royal tracks, there lived a crafty con man and his good-hearted nephew.
With a taste of this elixir, the lad will walk again now. Don't overdo it.
The most daring swindle to perform.
Don't call it a crime. Call it an adventure. Feel the adventure about to begin. We are known as the weavers of distinction. We know how to make clothes so dazzling and innovative that it has the extraordinary quality of being invisible to anyone who is stupid.
I've got to have these clothes. Weavy.
It's the beloved tale of mystical threads.
It is such fine material, isn't it?
And tailor-made magic.
Love it, I love it, I love it. It's me all over.
Sid Caesar, Clive Revel, and Robert Morse as the tailor in The Emperor's New Clothes.
All right, so there's the trailer for that. So I think it's probably pretty safe to assume that I guess that neither of you have ever seen this movie before.
Nope.
It was a holiday tradition for no.
Yeah. No. we used to pair it along with Gremlins and Christmas Cruelty every year. We gather around the hearth and watch The Emperor's New Clothes for some reason. You know, like, I think I said this with The Frog Prince too. It's weird. I have some weird recollection of these damn movies, and I don't know what it is because this ain't my bag. You know what I mean? Like, when did this come out? This came out May of '87. So I was 7 years old. So maybe this time period, maybe I caught some of this or something like that. You're kind of half in, kind of half out on the fairy tale shit. That's all I don't know why. I'm just thinking I've seen Sid Caesar in this damn movie before. And I don't know why, because I definitely don't remember watching it per se, but I might have. Now, maybe some of that comes from one thing that I dug up, that these movies, believe it or not, gained a little bit of a cult following a couple years later when the Disney Channel started airing them as storybook cinema in 1988, which I find hilarious because Cannon made these to compete with Disney. And then like a year later, they're showing them on the Disney Channel. So go figure. But maybe that's where I recall them in some weird way of them showing these on the Disney Channel back in the late 80s. But I don't remember actually sitting down and ever watching this, and God knows I never seek it out. So who knows where that recollection is coming from, right? The alternate title to this is Cannon Movie Tales, The Emperor's New Clothes, and it was released May 15th of 1987, and it made its video premiere 2 years later in March of 1989. It was produced by Cannon Films and, of course, distributed by Cannon Film Distributors. It's rated G, total runtime of 1 hour and 25 minutes, thank God. On IMDb, it's listed as comedy, family, musical. Just like the other Cannon Movie Tales movies, it was filmed in Israel in November of 1986 for a budget of what I can tell about $1.5 million. Most of that I would assume is on these costumes because the movie's pretty shitty. The music is it is what it is, but the costume design is pretty good, right? For this type of movie, it's pretty good.
And the set design, I guess.
Yeah, set design.
The set design was a bit more upscale than the Frog Prince movie.
yeah, and that ain't saying a lot, but yeah, it's and I'm sure we'll reference the Frog Prince a lot here today in talking about this one because it's the natural comparison too. This was directed by David Irving, who also did Rumpelstiltskin and Sleeping Beauty for this Cannon Movie Tales series. You guys may more fondly remember him for directing the movie Chud 2, Bud the Chud.
Ah.
That's right. The same dude that made The Emperor's New Clothes made Chud 2. So we'll be getting to that sooner or later here on the Spook Show, hopefully.
Well, that kind of makes sense because it's not Chud 1. Chud 2, I don't know. Yeah, it's not as
it's not as fondly remembered as...
Not as fondly remembered, but it is entertaining. Way more entertaining than Emperor's New Clothes.
That wouldn't take much, but yeah, I hear you. Wasn't also Chud 2, wasn't it one of the Vestron video releases, like that Blu-ray series that I'm almost positive they released Chud 2.
I think so. Yeah, that one.
Anyways, it's a screenplay by David Irving, the director, also Anna Matthias and Lynn Talon. It's based, of course, on the old school fairy tale by Hans Christian Andersen. And so the little bit, I couldn't find a lot of background. Unfortunately, normally here on Cannon Fodder, we have author of the Cannon Film Guide Volume 1 and Volume 2, Austin Trunick, on to do his Cannon Chronicles segment where he gives us some background on all that stuff. But just like on The Frog Prince, he didn't show up. So if you're listening to this, Austin, thanks. I couldn't find any background information, like nothing deep, other than what I've just went through. But I did find a little bit on the Cannon Movie Tales thing, and apparently, and Smoke, you'll be happy about this. They only made 9 of these. I say that knowing that there's 7 more that we're going to have to watch one day. But they only made 9 of these, but it was originally supposed to be 16 of these. And I guess they flopped so hard that like they just stopped, And I'm sure they had bigger fish to fry, around this time period, right? This is when Superman 4 had flopped. Yeah, Master of the Universe. They had some big flops on their hands, so I'm sure they had bigger fish to fry and just they just tapped out on the Cannon Movie Tales. But I did find that interesting that there was supposed to be 16 of these fucking things. Thank God they stopped at 9.
Yeah, thankfully it's twice or it's half as much as that, right? Just about.
Yeah, well, that's the way I look at it too. Is like, look, we're there's 9 of them. Now we've watched 2, so you can only get us 7 more times with this Cannon.
Maybe we'll come across one that actually is halfway decent. I get that just on name alone. Maybe Rumpelstiltskin will be all right. I don't know.
That's the one. No, it's not that one because that's Rumpelstiltskin with Billy Barty, I assume.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
The one that I'm holding out hope for that we get to is Puss in Boots starring Christopher Walken, because that.
Oh yeah.
That's the one that's like, that's got to suck, but that's got to be entertaining because it's Christopher Walken. I assume as Puss in Boots. I don't know what part he has in it. I didn't look that far, but what the hell? That's something that I have to see. I guarantee, that being said, we'll probably have to watch the other 6. With the Wheel of Fate. We'll land us on the other 6 movies before we ever get to the one that we actually want to see for a minute, right? I just know how lucky we are, or unlucky. I couldn't find any, money that this thing actually made or anything like that. I would anticipate probably not much. Most of these, honestly, and we talked about this on that Frog Prince episode, that like these were essentially made to compete with Disney, but mostly just like released in international markets, because the one thing people probably don't remember about Cannon was that they also had a chain of theaters that were mostly in Israel and maybe in Greece, Italy, something like that. They were overseas somewhere, like in the foreign markets. So I think like this was basically like they got tired of putting the Disney movies in their theaters for them to get rolled up by Disney movies. They're like, we're going to compete with this. We're going to release our own fairy tales and put them in our theaters. So I don't think a lot of these movies, and this one included, really got released here, like in theaters and stuff. These were mostly just Disney Channel, straight to TV, straight to video releases over the next couple, years following their releases. So I think that's why there's not a lot to dig up specifically on this one. So this does star classic comedian Sid Caesar, so at least it has that going for it, right?
Yeah, I thought he was. I think that was what made the movie, was him.
Yeah, I mean, for what he's got to work with here, yeah, I mean, he does a good job with it. And,
he does.
He's definitely the standout. That one and the lead, like shyster, whatever his name was, Henry. That was played by Robert Morris. He sticks out. He's hamming it up, of course, but like he's doing his best, right?
You left out the other. What's the the I would say love interest, but not love interest, but the one that was the princess was supposed to marry. Like,
oh God, the goofy looking guy. I can't think of his name. It was Prince something. Prince Nino, is that his name? I think.
You just make it like,
oh yeah, it's real. There's some super like slapsticky moments in there, right? Like where it's like, stuff like that. But like that, where he's supposed to be the handsome prince or whatever, and he rolls up and he's like missing teeth and he's fugly basically.
Even the emperor's like, oh, this guy better have a lot of money.
Yeah, where's the real prince at? This is him. Ugh. Yeah. And that was the only laughs I had throughout the movie. The end.
Yeah.
That's about the extent of it.
There's a whole lot of singing this thing.
Princess Gilda was played by Lisette Anthony. I think she had a few parts in some other stuff, including Dracula, Dead and Loving It. And she was also in she was also in Kroll. So
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Smoke, that's for you if you wanted to
Yeah.
recall her from Kroll. There's some other actors and stuff in here that were clearly in other Cannon productions. Like I've seen Clive Reville in some other stuff, and you know, there's a couple other names, but nobody that really jumps out at you. It's mostly like, oh yeah, I kind of think I've seen this guy before in some other stuff. But Cannon was really known for that. You know, like they had kind of their crew of people that they used a lot. And I think a lot of them carried over in these movies because they made these movies like in a short period of time. They rolled out like 9 of these movies over like the course of a couple years. So they probably made them in batches there in Israel and then spit them out. So you got a lot of repeat cast, you know, or you know, whatever in these movies. So there are a couple faces in this one that were in the Frog Prince, I believe. Unfortunately, Donnie's not here to give us the Cannon connections to connect, but I'm pretty sure there's a couple floating in here. So floating in the bowl, so to speak.
It's time to refresh. For your convenience, we have an attractive refreshment stand with a parade of items to tempt your taste. Hot buttered popcorn, golden good and fresh from the popper. Your favorite candies, wholesome and rich and full of flavor. Ice cream and other good things to eat. Plus, ice cold Coca-Cola. So bright, so bracing, with a taste and tingle all its own.
For you, the listeners of the All-American Spook Show podcast, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. So I hopped on over to audible.com and I just typed in The Emperor's New Clothes, and I figured we'd get exactly what we got here. I got 45 results at least, but there's The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen, narrated by Catherine Siggers. That one's only 13 minutes long. There's a similar one that's part of the Summertime Story Classic Book 5 series. So you get a lot of like those, you know, here's a bunch of these old classic fairy tales in one book type of thing. There is an Audible exclusive one too as well called The Emperor's New Clothes, narrated by Timson Gregg. That one's about 15 minutes long. So yeah, if you just want to hear there's another one here that's a little longer, The Emperor's New Clothes and Other Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen and David Tennant, narrated by Anne-Marie Duff and others. That one's over an hour long. So there's plenty of them on here. I mean, you're getting all the classic. I mean, because it's a pretty brief story, too. I don't think a lot of those fairy tales were very long where they smoked. Like, they were all pretty brief stories, right? You kind of get in and out, get to the point, and then move along, you know, so.
Yeah, usually just a few pages longer.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much what you get there on Audible. So if any of that floats your boat, go on over to audibletrial.com/spookshow. Again, that's audibletrial.com/spookshow for your free audiobook. Now let me hop back over to imdb.com and click on plot summary to see how much of it they actually explain on there. I'm betting we're only going to get one. Oh, no, wow. We've got 2, believe it or not. So I'll read them both. We got the brief one. In Europe, several centuries ago, a group of prisoners about to be executed or released as part of the celebration of the upcoming wedding of the emperor's daughter, Princess Gilda, to a very rich prince from another country. Then we've got a longer one submitted by Pav over on IMDb. In Europe, several centuries ago, a group of prisoners about to be executed are freed as part of the celebration of the upcoming marriage of the emperor's daughter, Princess Gilda, to a very rich prince from another country. Among these newly free men are an uncle and nephew con artist team who continue their usual work to the point where they end up in the emperor's own palace, posing as tailors. Taking advantage of the emperor's extreme love for new and newer clothing as a symbol of his wealth, the fake tailors get him to hire them to make clothes in time for the wedding that are invisible to all who are either unfit for their position or very stupid. Of course, they wouldn't make anything at all, but instead steal all of the material, many jewels, and leave the emperor and all the people thinking that they are unfit or very stupid. Things start to get more difficult as neither the emperor nor Gilda like the prince she is engaged to. She and the nephew fall in love. The nephew has misgivings about being a con artist, and the emperor is constantly checking on the progress of his tailors, who are watched over by a very suspicious guard. I like that guard that's watching them.
Yeah.
That's the slapsticky stuff, is like their facial expressions and stuff when it's, you know, like in those type of moments. Yeah. Very, very over the top. It's not it's not even necessarily that the whole thing is stagey, although it very much is because it's a musical and like it's an old musical like that, right? But it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird setup, but like, honestly, I have to say, by and large, I think I enjoyed this one a little bit more than I did the Frog Prince, if that means anything.
Yeah, I see that too. Yeah.
I think the songs are a little better in this. I mean, look, you're looking at this as I'm trying to be as cool as I can possibly be with something like this. I don't like this kind of thing, right? So I'm trying to be as constructive critically as I possibly can and not completely shit on it. Because I know what Donnie would do if he were here. He would just shit on it. So I'm trying not to be Donnie about it. It's definitely not something I would watch over and over again. I'll say that.
Yeah.
There is some moments here. Sid Caesar, right? He does a good job. I think everybody does about as good as you could expect them to be with what's given to them. You know, I don't think, by and large, nobody's really mailing it in like, oh, fuck, like, because I kind of felt that way with the Frog Prince in some ways. Even like just with the music and everything, it just, felt cheap ass. I don't, like, this one felt like it had a little bit of production quality to it. Like they cared on some level however long it took them to make it. For that week or two, they gave a shit, and then they probably just moved on. But they did put some effort behind it, so you get a decently entertaining thing here. But that ain't saying much. That's I'm getting the positives out of the way here. What did you think about it, there, Tiana?
I thought that the production was good, and exactly like you said. Like it didn't feel like it was like a stage play, like the Frog Prince did.
Yeah.
Like it was more like a movie kind of thing.
And maybe that's kind of what not only the set design and everything, but maybe like some of the locations and stuff they use, because clearly they're only like it looks cool, right? Like at least better than that one. Just compare.
The Frog Prince was definitely like in one spot.
Yeah, you could tell they
inside the castle or right outside the castle. This was like on the beach and.
Like they made some kind of set, and then they're like, well, we have 2 sets, and that's all we're going to use. At least this one has some outdoor, like some exteriors and some stuff going on. There's something to look at, right?
Yeah. Well, there's more people, playing off of play off of each other when when you don't necessarily have a strong. I mean, you got certain actors that are strong. You got Sid Caesar or whatever, but like the first one's only got a few people in it. So, and I don't even remember who it was now.
I can't name any names right away. I just remember the two mains were the girl that played an Annie, which I don't remember her name.
Okay.
I just remember that.
Okay, yeah.
And then God Almighty, there was the dude that was the Frog Prince, the tall frog or whatever the fuck, the creepy bastard tall frog in that movie. That guy was in something else that we watched like not long after that. And I'd have to go back and look. I'd have to go back and look. But yeah, like that's it. Like that was all that was in it. So at least this one had, a little bit more going on.
Yeah.
In that regard.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know which one was made first or came out first or whatever.
Well, the Frog Prince came out in '86, so this came out in '87. So yeah, that would have been first. So maybe they learned from that one. Yeah. We need to up our game a little bit here. This is horrible. Oh, that by the way, I just looked at that was John Paragon, who that played the Frog Prince in that movie, and he went on. He went on to be Zombie in Pee-wee. The genie Zombie or whatever.
Yeah,
that was
that's right. Yeah,
and there was something else that he was in not long after that too. That was like, what the hell? It was in UHF. It was right after we watched that. He was one of the dudes in UHF, that Weird Al movie, which I guess shouldn't surprise us, right? By the way, the girl that played Annie in that one, that was or that played Princess Zora in The Frog Prince, that was Eileen Quinn. By the way, I was right. Clive Reville, he was the king in The Frog Prince, and in this one, he was the prime minister.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
The dude with the over-the-top like wig and outfit and everything, the prime minister. Yeah, that guy. That guy was in both movies. So there's your canon connection. Good night, everybody.
And he had then his eyebrow. Of course, he had the mustache rolled over and everything, but his eyebrows also were.
Yeah, I mean everything was over the top, but like they actually kind of worked for this one, because the story is like this emperor is obsessed with clothing and fashion and everything, right? So like them being super over the top time period costumes and everything, like it actually works here. Did you notice that one time in the movie when like we need all these jewels to make this material that's going to be special, right? So they bring in like emeralds and rubies and all kinds of jewels and diamonds and shit.
Yeah.
And then there was randomly that one little part where they're sucking the jewels back into the bag. What the hell was that? It was just like, haha, we've got all the jewels, and then they're holding the bag, and it's clearly like they shot a shot of those guys pouring the jewels out of the bag and then just reversed it. But there's no magic in this movie. There's no explanation as to why this happened. It just gets like vacuum sucked back into the bag. I'm like, what the hell? Oh, and the ADR in this movie was horrible. God damn, especially with old Toothless, the prince. Like when he's talking, like whatever he is saying clearly ain't matching up to the dubbed over the ADR, right? Like it is, it's bad. But it's weird. He must have had a weird accent or something because he's the only one that stood out to me in this.
Yeah, I wonder if they like tried to go with his original voice or something. It didn't work out, kind of like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
What's the Hercules movie? Hercules in New York when before he had, his English wasn't as polished as it would be a little bit later on or whatever. I wonder if it's something like that. Like,
yeah, it must have been
dubbed him over.
It must have been like bad accent or something, or this dude like had no discernible voice. Like, no, we don't want him to sound like this. It's got to be this, but it was bad. It was bad ADR. Overall, though, I mean, like we make fun of this in a lot of movies that we talk about where you could just call it gaslighting movie, but that's what this is, right? Like, this is like top notch gaslighting where they're no, you're not. If you don't believe or if you don't think you're seeing this material, you're either unfit for your office or you're very stupid. I love that. Because no one is going to admit, right? Like, oh, well, yes, of course I see it. It's purple. Oh, no, it's red. And then they get in this whole singing argument about it. But yeah, I thought that was hilarious. They're just gaslighting the shit out of these dudes into taking these jewels and stuff. And then in the end, they get away with nothing, right? Like, nothing.
Except the princess, right? The
one guy.
One guy.
Yeah, the nephew or whatever, they fall in love like in that description we read, and then they take off. Like, there's that shot of the emperor, after he's been called out and he kind of accepts, like, well, we were stupid, weren't we? Yeah. And then like he looks out the window and he's like, goodbye, daughter. He's just letting one of the dudes that just conned the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Just take off with her. Goodbye. Hope you have a good life.
Have a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And one of them could take over the.
Yeah, have a bunch of kids and bring one of them back, and they can take this shit. I guess the emperor was just like giving up on life at that point. Fuck it. You want my daughter? Take her. See ya. Just bring back some kids so somebody can take this shit from me. I'm done. Yeah, and then Henry escapes, like in the lead con artist guy, the uncle. He escapes in a boat, and like he's got like one huge diamond under his hat. Lifts the hat up, and it flies out and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. And he just rows away. The end. Like, so in the end, they got nothing. Well, now, Smoke, maybe you're familiar with what the lesson of this story is supposed to be. What exactly is the because there was always a moral to these old classic fairy tales, right? So what is the moral of The Emperor's New Clothes?
Yeah, this one it's not as one as I'm familiar with the storyline a little bit, but it's not one that I read a lot of back then, because I'm not as familiar with the original. First of all, is changed up a little bit, of course, for this one.
Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've even read the original Hans Christian Andersen.
Mm-hmm. I remember reading it when I was a little kid, but I don't remember all the subtle nuances. And I just remember, like I said a minute ago, it was pretty brief. So that's what I recall.
And I should have brushed up on it before we did this, but it probably
would have only took us about 10 minutes to read it if we'd have just stopped and read it. I think the moral is something about like not necessarily don't judge a book by its cover, but like don't be easily fooled, right?
Yeah.
I guess it's like be wary of beware of strangers. I guess I don't know. I mean, there's probably many points you can pull out of this. I guess is the ultimate moral of the story, but that's what you're supposed to bring out of fairy tales. So I don't know. The horrible presentation of this one, though, doesn't necessarily teach you any lessons other than don't watch any more Cannon movie tales. That's the moral of the story. Well, there we go.
Eventually we will be.
Yeah, well, like we said, there's 7 more of these fucking things floating out there in the ether, so we'll get to them. We'll get to them eventually. Maybe we'll get knocked out by ether before before we have to watch those. But I'm sure that's not how fate works for us. We don't do obviously. Austin's not here to do his Canon Chronicles. Donnie's not even here to do his Canon Connection, so we don't do any other little gimmicks here other than a Cannonball rating. So with these, we compare it to the other Canon movies that we have watched here on Cannon Fodder, and it's a 0 through 5 scale, but we don't give out stars, we give out cannonballs. Now, the only one we can fairly compare this to is the Frog Prince. Donnie gave that one half a cannonball, and all of the rest of us, including Will, he was actually there for that episode, he gave it 1 cannonball. So with that being said, Tiana, where do you land on the Emperor's New Clothes?
I'm going to give it 1.5 cannonballs.
All right, Smoke, what do you say?
Yeah, I definitely thought it was better than the Frog Prince for sure. We'll see what, and that was the floor so far, right? Frog Prince.
Yes.
Which I gave it a star. Well, yeah. I mean, like 1 cannonball. I think I'll go, and who knows what the rest is who knows what the other 7 will bring.
God, I can only imagine.
But there's no re-rating once you've done, So yeah, I think I'm going to go, I was thinking 1.25, but I don't think I'll go 1.5 just because, I mean, the production value and everything is much better on this one than that one was. The actors, everything was better. And like I said, not knowing what the other 7 are going to bring us, I'll go with 1.5.
I think I'm going to totally agree with both of you. Like I'm going to go cannonball and a half, and that's basically like, man, I pray to the Lord the other 7 aren't as bad. And on top of that, this is definitely more watchable than the Frog Prince. Like the Frog Prince, I just wanted to punch myself in the face until I went to sleep. And then hope that it was over, you know. At least this one, like, it was entertaining enough for me not to hate life, you know. So like, I give it an extra half a cannonball for that alone. Now that being
I think also these
ahead.
2 movies are these 2 fairy tales for me personally were not my favorite fairy tales.
Yeah,
either.
If I'm
the
ranking
Frog Prince or the Emperor's New Clothes.
if I'm ranking the old classics, if I'm ranking the old classics, this doesn't probably crack the top 10.
Yeah, but like I said, Rumpelstiltskin. Once we get there, that'd be cool because I did like that one. When I was younger, and read that one more. And then you had Rapunzel. I think you said was one of them too.
Yeah, and we're all huge Billy Barty fans. So if nothing else, we can't wait for that.
And the Puss in Boots, Christopher Walken.
Yeah, there you go. That too. No other reason than that. So Will didn't give us anything, but Donnie did. He wasn't able to be here, obviously, but he did give us his star or cannonball rating. I'm sorry, and he gave it 0.75. So 3/4 of a cannonball. And the only instruction that he gave us was, because he didn't recall what he gave the Frog Prince. He said a 1/4 star or a 1/4 cannonball more than he gave the Frog Prince was his instruction. So, so there you go. It's a slight boost. So basically, I think he thought the same as us. Like, this is a little bit better than the Frog Prince, but that ain't saying much. So, boy, I tell you what, man, this is really an interesting one that will probably, I have a feeling we'll find out when we do the anniversary show next October. I have a feeling this one might go down. I have a feeling as time goes on and we're like, look back, God damn, what were we thinking? This will probably go down. You watch. Well, we'll find out next year. That's it. That's all we got to say about this one. Next week in the rotation, it's my choice. Now we have this newer rotation where we're watching vintage, which is like 1969 back horror movies. Then we have older, which is from 1970 to 1999. Then we have newer, which is 2000 to 5 years ago, and then recent, which is within the last 5 years. So I'm the first one that pulled, it has to be something recent. So something from the last 5 years. And of course, there are a lot of movies that I'd like to talk about from the last 5 years, but unfortunately, it's Christmas time. So it's got to be a Christmas horror from the last 5 years. So I decided to fall on the sword a little bit here, and I'm sure I'm not going to be a popular person for this. But we're going to watch the second remake of Black Christmas. This is the one from 2019. So Black Christmas from 2019. That's what we're going to watch. I haven't watched it. I remember at the time thinking like, oh God, I don't want to watch that. But when you look at that list of stuff though, from the last 5 years, Christmas horror wise, there's nothing that was like, dude, I want to watch that. So I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's just get this thing out of the way. That's the way I was viewing it. It's like,
saw that one either.
It's like watching the last 5 Hellraiser movies. We're just like, fuck it. We just need to get through it. Let's just do it. That's kind of the way I feel with this one. Let's just rip the Band-Aid off, and hopefully it surprises us. We'll find out. We'll see.
I can't remember if I saw the other one, the 2000. What was it?
No, 2006, I believe, and I didn't even see that one either.
Yeah,
seen that. We watched 2006 one, right?
I watched it recently, like maybe last year.
Can't remember if I watched
before, but I don't think you were.
I might not have seen any of the remakes.
Yeah, see, like if the criteria was a little different, I probably would have picked that Black Christmas instead of this one. But we'll find out.
Oh yeah,
we will find out next week. So, for Will and Donnie,
both remakes are both remakes are completely different than the original.
I do believe I read something somewhere along the line that 2006 remake actually is kind of considered somewhat of a sequel.
Yes.
In some ways. Now this one doesn't. Like this one's like its own thing. I think like a remake or something, right? But
this one has something to do with cults.
The 2019 one?
Yeah.
Cult. Christmas cults?
Hopefully for smoke's sake, it crosses over with the Purge universe and the Paranormal Activity universe in some way. It just gets all that shit he loves so much and just wraps it up into a big Christmas package and then chunks it right in his face. Let's hope for his sake. It's probably not going to be any of those things because that would be entertaining for us, right? It's probably going to be less of those. So anyways, that's it. So for Will and Donnie, who couldn't be with us, Tiana, Professor Smoke, I'm Josh. We are the All-American Spook Show, and we'll continue the Christmas season, the holiday season, next week with Black Christmas from 2019.
And now, folks, it's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.